It's cool. It's like cooking. You're like putting in all these different ingredients, all these different instruments, and you have to know how much of what to put in to make it all a cohesive product.
Welcome to Femme Forte, a podcast where we celebrate women in music and performing arts. I'm your host, Amanda DeFries. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm so excited to share this special episode with you. For the first time ever, I was able to travel to LA and record a few episodes in a brand new studio space. One of our first guests is Amanda Muse. I first discovered Amanda when she won the Hit Like a Girl drumming contest in 2018, but now she is a full-time composer based in Los Angeles, California. She scored the critically acclaimed short film Journalism 101, directed by Michael Lopez, and she conducts and records her compositions at major Los Angeles-based scoring stages, including Fox, Sony, and Warner Brothers. In addition to being a composer, Amanda has been a session percussionist for clients including Netflix, Riot Games, and Cinesamples. We talk about the pivotal moments that ignited her passion for music and led her on a transformative journey from percussionist to composer. We also talk about the intricacies of her creative process as a composer, from conceptualization to orchestration, and how she seamlessly integrates her percussive background into her compositions. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back to Femme Forte. I have a very special guest with me today. Today we have Amanda Muse. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I want to tell you that this is not only super special for me, but also just really exciting because I don't know if I told you this, but you have been like a huge inspiration for me, like specifically in the percussion world. Like I actually found on my like old Facebook videos a lick that you had done that I tried recreating. I remember I was...
Do you remember which leg?
I don't remember the name of it,
Okay.
but I'm sure I can find it for you. But it was... I just remember being in San Antonio at my parents' for the holidays, and I had saw a lick that you posted sometime around that. And I had like the med and had like the angle of me practicing on my practice pad, and I posted it and like tagged you on Facebook. And it was like from years and years ago, but it's been such a cool journey, but also just a huge inspiration and such an honor to be able to share you and your story. Like I first discovered you through Hit Like a Girl, and I also participated in Hit Like a Girl through the multi-percussion concert side of things, but just remembering seeing like all your videos and everything and being able to follow you on social media to see where you are now. Like it's such a cool like thing to like be able to be here with you. And so I just want to like first just say that I'm super honored to finally like meet you in person and be able to talk about you and your journey.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for being, coming along with me on the journey. That means a lot.
So I know who you are, but tell a little bit our listeners about who you are, where you're from, and how you got into music.
Yeah, I'm a composer based here in Los Angeles. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, so good old Disney. Grew up in a very musical family. We were all put in band and chorus and did all that through school. And I started playing piano at like 6 or something like that. So music was always part of the journey growing up. And I eventually got into drumline in high school, auditioned for snare. I was actually a flute player, but I saw the drumline and I was like, I want to do that really bad. So I made the line in 10th grade and continued percussion and drumline all throughout college. And eventually started working summers at Universal Studios. I started gigging as a snare drummer, started doing some shows there. And so that would be like my college summers. Instead of doing DCI, I would do like performance gigs and stuff like that. But I was really still so invested in marching band and percussion. And after finishing my bachelor's, I got hired to teach one of the drum lines at our school. So we had 2 drum lines. One was kind of like a freshman drum line, and the other one was for more advanced players. So I graduated and got to be the director for the freshman drum line for a couple years. And throughout that period, I was writing a lot of drum shows and gigging and teaching, doing a lot of clinics and like just camps and everything. Just a lot of teaching and freelance performance gigs in that span of time. And eventually, it was around, it was like December 2019. I got the itch to pursue composing because I realized in that span of 2 years that while I loved the teaching aspect, it was always the writing of the shows that I just was obsessed with. I had to be doing it. I had to be writing. So I wanted to write for more than drumline. So I came here to LA in January 2020, before the pandemic, to pursue my master's in music composition. And I just graduated with that last May. I've just been, I've been working for a company called Cinesamples. They make sample libraries for composers. And so we've been, recording instruments, and I've been writing demos for the company and creating samples and just doing a lot of that work in the past couple years of being here. And here I am.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a crazy journey, but
yeah. So what prompted you to really make that career change and want to push yourself further into composition? Because I'm sure it can be, I mean, I know from personal experience, wanting to say that I wanted to major in music in general can be a very scary thing. But going from, music education and teaching and wanting to go into composition, what was that turning point for you?
It's funny. My bachelor's is actually in psychology. So I didn't have an undergrad in music, although have been a musician all my life. I was like, okay, I'm going to do something quote unquote stable. And I made all A's in my psych classes. So I was like, okay, I'll pursue this. But music always won out. I always wanted to be doing the gigs and teaching and writing. And it was in that 2 years of after graduating with my bachelor's in psych, I was doing so much teaching and writing these little licks and writing for drumline that I was like, I want to be doing more of this. I don't want to be sitting in a chair and counseling people, although I respect that. My passion was always music. And so I made this shift. It was really scary to just like move here without any plan, any job. My sister lived here, but that's the only thing I had. I was like, I don't have a job lined up. I'm going to apply for this master's program and hope that I get in. But I had to self-teach, in terms of composing for orchestral instruments and all of that, before I got into the program, because I didn't have experience writing for stuff like that. Even though I was always in my free time, I was always writing on the piano and like just anything. It was always there, but I kind of made that shift when I finally realized it's always going to be this little want inside of me that I have to pursue.
Absolutely. And so how did you self-teach yourself or become self-taught of how to write for the orchestra, like the winds and the brass?
Yeah.
Because as percussionist, I know myself, I also would go into finale and try to do like drumline cadences or try to write some version of an indoor show, but it's completely different when you're dealing with the
Full
other
orchestra. Yeah, it's so different. I mean, I thank you, YouTube. YouTube was such a great help, because I had to get into the master's program by writing compositions first. And once I got in, of course, they teach you all the, the gaps and everything that I needed to learn. But before getting in there, I was always, YouTube and trying to read books and just listen to a lot of music, listen to the music that you want to kind of be composing and the genre and stuff like that. And luckily, I had been in band, so I was used to hearing, my ear was familiar with these sounds, luckily. So yeah, I just tried to get my hands on whatever I could. You do what you can.
Yeah. So fast forward to now, I know that you came from, correct me if I'm wrong, Western Carolina.
Western Carolina, yeah.
And so moving from Western Carolina to now LA is a pretty big shift.
It's pretty different.
And so what was the pinnacle point or inspiration for wanting to make the jump and move to LA? Because as we hear like all the time, like when we go to big cities, like even if I were to move from Texas to LA, that would be like a huge thing and honestly quite scary and a quite big life change. So what was the thing for you? You were like, no, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pursue my dreams.
It was just this realization that it's the heart of the music industry and music entertainment and film scoring is LA. There's London and New York as well, but LA is kind of the heart of it. And I wanted to just immerse myself in that environment. And it's just so different than from Western Carolina. Like you said, like it's like the Asheville area, and moving from a quiet, beautiful, just like clean area like that to LA where there's just too many people here. But it was kind of a shock for a moment, but also I had these starry eyes. I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Or I just saw a celebrity at Whole Foods. Yeah. It's these really cool moments that you sometimes pinch yourself and you're like, wait, I am here. So it was scary at first a little bit, but also it was like the pandemic happened like a couple months later. So we all kind of had to stay in our houses anyway for like a few months. So that was weird. But yeah, I just had to adjust.
With that, how have you been able to make these really unique and cool opportunities like for yourself while being in LA? Because we all hear that, once you're in a new city, it's like, okay, well, where do I go from here?
Yeah. I started with school, and it doesn't have to be that way for everyone, but for me, I needed gaps filled in and I needed to network. For me, I was like, okay, I think I need to get a degree in this. And so I started to, I got into the program, and school doesn't just make a job happen for you, obviously, but, you start to learn about internships and stuff like that. And I looked around and I got an internship in a studio, and that wasn't through school. That was just literally through like searching online. So I got an internship, and then eventually I saw a role for an executive assistant at Cinesamples, the sample library that I've been working for. So I saw that role, and while I didn't have pretty much any experience at that point with like sample libraries, they hired me. So I got that gig, and that grew into like a full-time producer role. So that was really cool. But yeah, it's all through just searching and trying to network as much as you can, because you get jobs here through knowing other people. It's really rare that you're just like, oh, it's a LinkedIn job, let me apply to that, and you get it. It's mostly in the entertainment industry. It's really a lot through who you know. So
yeah. And I definitely agree with you, because even in the position that I have now, I have learned throughout my life that networking and knowing the right people and knowing how to connect with the right people is such a huge aspect. And whether it's your career, whether it's personal life, I was just talking the other day about how I met a friend who ended up working for like South by, and that's how I was able to go to South by Southwest last year to get that opportunity. And it's just by literally meeting someone in a random place and just getting to know them, and then who knows what opportunities that they can take you, you know, later on in life.
Yeah, it's timing and luck and trust. You have to kind of nurture those relationships, because even if you meet like someone who's looking for your position, if you meet them at like a coffee shop, and like they already chose someone else, maybe they'll think of you for next time. Or, I hear stories like that all the time. It's very much timing and trust and luck.
Yeah. So how were you able to move up the ranks in Santa Samples? You said that you started off as an assistant and then it later grew into this like kind of full-time producer position.
I was assisting for a while anyone on the team who needed help with their department. So it was kind of a general assistant as well as assisting our CEO directly. So it kind of established trust within the company that I was reliable and I would, deliver stuff on time and can be trusted. And they chop instruments. So when we record an instrument, we record like every single note on the instrument. Say it's like a violin. You record that instrument, every single note. You need to chop each instrument like in a software. So you upload the recording into a software and then you're going to chop every single note and then program that onto a keyboard so a composer can play a violin on a keyboard. It can sound like a violin. But these chopping positions are like really valuable in a sample company. So I was doing a lot of that. I was doing a lot of, the instrument chopping. And I was really quick at it for some reason. I delivered the instruments really quickly, and I guess they noticed and liked that, and they saw that I was consistent. I credit a lot of that to like the in drum. This is funny, and like on a snare line. Attacks have to be perfectly together.
Yep.
So I always pay attention to those crazy details now because they're just nailed into my head. So in terms of timing of these instrument attacks and like pasting these instruments and chopping them, that was always like part of my process is like the timing of an attack. And I was really consistent with that. I think because of drumline in my ear for that. So I was just good at that, and they decided to promote me, and so now they started to value my opinion in terms of, okay, what other libraries can we create? We see that you can compose demos really well. We'll have you do that as well. And so it was just kind of a slow growth and trust. So
yeah, and I also can agree with you on that in terms of like the cutting and the timing. I mean, as someone who's into like photography and videography and spends a lot of my time editing music or editing videos, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
The exact same way when it comes
for it,
right?
Right?
So when it comes like cutting something to like a music sequence during a video, like I'm here on my space bar just like tap into the beat or the Yep. Yes. And so I definitely can credit that to being a percussionist.
Yeah,
so
I know.
100%.
It's drilled into your head, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That very detail oriented.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can totally agree. So with that being said, what do you get most, or what has fulfilled you most from being a composer? Like, what do you like most about it?
I think it just creates a feeling in both me and the person who's listening. It's like, because I've wondered this question myself too. I'm like, why do I like composing so much? Why is it so fulfilling for someone to like hear my music? I don't know. It's just, it creates a feeling for them, and the feelings are different for every person. And sometimes it's an avenue of comfort for a person, and it's just a way of expressing myself that is just so fulfilling. And that even goes back to like my snare licks. Is like, why was I always doing those little licks? I don't know. I just clung to it. It's just a way of expressing yourself that like feels good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The expression of it, I guess, is why I love it.
Yeah, I was actually watching a YouTube video that you had done, and it was actually, I think, layering the piece that you had done.
Wings like eagles.
Exactly. And so it was really cool being able to hear just like the winds part, and
Yeah.
then you were adding layers and layers of percussion into it, and then adding like more winds into it. And so
Yeah.
just from someone who is not a composer but like very much as a musician, it was just so cool to be able to like hear what's going on in your process. And I'm sure as a percussionist we have that advantage to know, like, you know, the triangle adds like a little nice element here.
Yeah. It's like, it's funny because a lot of composers who weren't percussionists growing up, they're kind of intimidated when it comes to writing for percussion parts. Not every composer, but it's sometimes, because when I talk to them, they're like, yeah, I never know what to write for percussion. I'm like, you just can write what you feel. I know, but it's good because I feel like I, in some ways, have an advantage in that aspect, because writing for percussion can be so tricky. But yeah, it's cool. It's like cooking. You're like putting in all these different ingredients, all these different instruments, and you have to know how much of what to put in to make it all a cohesive product.
Yeah. And so how has percussion influenced the way that you compose? And more so, less from the percussion specific part, but just in general.
I think it's influenced my composing in that I'm like, the melodies and the things that I write are really rhythmic. And I'm not just talking about the percussion parts. I'm talking about strings and ostinatos and just the energy that my compositions have are just really rhythmic and like vibrant in that aspect. So it's like they always have to have this rhythmic energy to them. That's why I prefer doing like the faster, more energetic pieces sometimes, but I like the slow stuff too. But yeah, it's mostly, I think, just more rhythmic in terms of the melodies, really like agile and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so kind of going back to like percussion and when you were writing your licks, like where did that inspiration or where did the itch really first come from?
I would just hear I would hear songs like on the radio and stuff or Spotify or whatever, and I don't know, I would just feel like, oh, this would be cool to have like a snare in it. And I would just like, you know, get my pad and sticks and play along to it. And then once I decided the song that I wanted to have a lick to, I would spend hours just writing that lick, like, and like days. Like I would chop it up. I'd be like, okay, I'll do these 4 measures and stuff. Because I had to be so intentional about every note. It wasn't just like, oh, let me come up with this in a few minutes. It's like I was really intentional about the notes that I was writing, just because, I don't know, I wanted to express them and wanted it to be heard in the song that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one, and I'm sure you might know which one I'm already going to talk about, but like the video that like always is very like always on my mind about you is when you play like a snare lick to like the Lion King with your lion,
my gosh,
with
yeah.
your like lion head on you. I love that video, and like it always comes up in my memories or like on my feed somehow in some way all the time.
That's so funny. Yeah. Okay, Banished Beyond. I don't know if you watched his videos. He was like way early, like early 2000s. But he put out all these YouTube videos with his mask on. Look him up if you don't know who Banished Beyond is. And he did this audition video for like, I think it was the Cadets. It's like a parody account. But he did this audition for the Cadets, and he was wearing his mask. And he did The Lion King. It was to The Lion King. And so that Lion King lick was like known throughout a few of the snare lines that I had been on, and it was like this legendary lick. So I learned it and literally bought a mask just so I could do that. That's so lame, but yeah, I went because I lived in the mountains at that time in Western Carolina. So I drove to the top of this mountain, and my sister was visiting, and I had her record it, and it was so hot. I'll never forget. I was like dripping and like dehydrating under that mask, but it was fun. So random.
It's truly iconic. I just have to say, it is iconic. And when I have like very core memories, whether it's watching you from Girls March or watching that video, that is definitely something that lives rent free in my head.
Love it.
And so, speaking of Hit Like a Girl, that is how I first discovered you. And so, what was your reasoning for entering into a competition, and how did winning the competition affect your life?
I found out about Hit Like a Girl through, I think, seeing AJ's video. She was the previous snare winner. I think I just saw her video and found out about the contest. And then I was like, oh, I really want to enter that. It was like, she had just won. So it was like, I had to do it, it would be like a year before I could even do that. But I was like, okay, I think that would be cool. So I knew that I wanted to do it. And then as time started to approach for like the submissions and everything, my mom was really sick. So my mom passed away in like November, and I was in the middle of kind of doing that, writing that lick, and I had just graduated from my bachelor's. So I was at home in Orlando, and I kind of clung to writing that and doing that in that time. It was like kind of a, it was a rough chapter, obviously. So I clung to doing that and putting my energy towards that as like kind of a needed distraction at points. So it ended up being like a 3-minute video. It was like too long to be a lick, but I just like wrote and wrote and wrote because it was, I needed that creative aspect in my life at that time. So I submitted it, and it ended up winning a few months later. And yeah, that meant a lot because I was doing it kind of in memory of her and just putting my energy towards that in that dark time. Yeah, it was like kind of a light in that dark time. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did winning the competition affect your life in terms of opportunities and obviously like getting more of a presence online?
Yeah, definitely started to get more views. Pearl Drums reached out to me as soon as they found out that I won, and they saw more of my videos. They reached out and signed me as like a clinician artist. So they sent me a drum, a snare drum, and I was like, yes. And that was really cool. So I had that, and then I also got signed with Vic Firth again as like a clinician artist. So meaning they would support me if I went to travel and teach a clinic, they would help with travel and stuff like that. But I was really proud because I loved those two brands specifically. Like those were the ones that I wanted to be with if I had a choice. So that was really cool. And I just continued posting and stuff like that. And I eventually, Hit Like a Girl had the winners perform at PASIC 2019.
Yeah.
So that was a cool opportunity as well. I was terrified, but it was fun. I was proud of that. So that was another cool opportunity that came specifically from them.
Yeah. And very much knowing that specifically this podcast is centered around uplifting and celebrating women in music and arts. What was it like, for instance, like PASIC or even seeing Hit Like a Girl, being surrounded by other female percussionists?
It's awesome. I mean, it's, whenever you get like a little girl coming up to you and like telling you she loves what you do and she wants to do that too, it's, of course it's super fulfilling. And it's also this thing of building other women up, I think years and years back, it felt like women were like competing with each other and stuff. But I think just we realized it doesn't have to be that way. There's room for everyone, and it's super, super cool to see women building women up. Because there's so much strength in that, and yeah, it's cool. I love seeing girl drummers. Like, I know how you think, I know how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of you being on this show is for me, like growing up and seeing you when I was in high school, that was like a huge inspiration point for me because like I was exactly the same way of not only seeing representation of another female drummer, but also
Yeah.
just seeing the representation of you thriving in the marching arts and through
Yeah.
drumline, which is like a huge thing, but also going on to do like these amazing things, like get signed by Pearl and get signed by Vic Firth and grow this strong presence of you on social media. Because when I used to have my whole YouTube and Instagram dedicated to like just drumming. Like that was a big thing. I was like,
Me
oh my
too.
gosh, like literally the pinnacle moment of growth for you. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was that little girl who was like, I want to be like that too.
Yeah, I think we all go through that stage of like dedicating the Instagram to like licks and like drumming and stuff, and your whole feed is just drumming. But yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
And so how does that translate into like being a composer? At least for me, I cannot name on my hand like the number of like female composers I know. So how has that affected your life now?
It's like almost kind of the same game where there's just less, it's a male dominated industry. And I've felt used to that because I was, as a drummer, I wasn't surrounded by many female drummers, at least on the lines that I was on. And so now it's like, yeah, it's mostly men composers that I am surrounded with. There are female composers, but it's such a small percentage. I don't know what the reason for that is. I don't know. I think it's maybe just interest. But when I do see a female composer, like a successful female composer, it's cool because I feel like it's starting to branch out a little bit more. There's starting to be more of us. But it's that same thing of wanting to support, other women in the industry and knowing that they've done a lot to get to where they are. Because, yeah, it can be rough. It can be really an uphill battle. Some men don't take women composers seriously. They don't think they can do certain things, or they don't think they can score an action scene for some weird reason. It's these funny things that come up that, like, I didn't even realize that was a thing until I got into the industry, of people literally just not taking some women seriously as composers just because they're a woman. But it's starting to change. The conversation is starting to change, and there's slow growth and progress. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. And so do you currently like advocate for that like now in your career? I mean, from what I have seen, like through your own like social media, like it's really cool to see, like similar to like the Winds Like Eagles video where you get to document your whole process, but in the representation aspect of like, hey, like I'm a composer, this is what I'm doing.
It's I don't know if I advocate for it actively right now. I think it's in the beginning stages of your career. You just want to get a job, and you're like, it's funny, you have people around you that are like, oh, you're a woman composer. People will look for you. You're different. People want women composers because there are so many men. But once you're out there looking for a job, it's like you don't find that to be the case as a woman. You're not like, you don't always feel like, yeah, I got this job in the bag because I'm a woman. It's like you're going up against all men usually, and it's like you just have to trust the person who is the hiring agent or the director. You have to trust that they're making that decision because the person who gets it is the right person for the job and the most talented, not, the gender thing. So, but yeah, I don't know if I would say I like am always thinking about like actively advocating for it, but I want to once I'm, more established and have more of a voice in the composer industry, that would definitely be a goal.
Yeah. So have you gotten like some pretty cool experiences and unique opportunities through your current role and throughout your like through stand-up samples and like for instance when you did the Wings like Eagle piece, like you got live recorded by like a 52-piece orchestra. I think that was like so cool to see. So like how did that opportunity come about?
We had worked with that studio in Scotland like a year and a half ago because we flew there to record a few Scottish instruments for a sample library, and they reached out to us, and they were looking for people to do a session there. They're kind of growing. They're able to do full orchestras now because they have the space for it. So yeah, my CEO, Mike, he was just like, does anyone want to do this? I'm like, heck yeah. I always will jump at the chance to do anything like that, like a live recording. And we did this same type of thing at Fox Studios, 20th Century Fox Studios, when we were recording a brass section. They were like, does anyone want to write a warm-up for the brass before we start recording? I'm like, yeah, I do. Yeah. So I was able to conduct that in Fox Studios and have that recorded, professional musicians just like sight reading your piece perfectly. It's the coolest thing. And then we did Sony as well, Sony scoring stage. We did a full string section, so I got to write a piece for that session as well. And it's just amazing. Nothing beats that feeling of a room of professional musicians sight reading your music perfectly. It's just so cool. They sight read it.
Yeah.
They don't have it in advance. They just do it perfectly. And I just think that's amazing.
Yeah. So what did it feel like to actually like hear it live for the first time versus like, hearing it through your computer?
Yeah, you can't replicate live musicians as much as we try to in the sampling world. There's a human touch to it and that human aspect, and it just makes such a difference. And it's always makes me feel so good and like gooey inside to hear live musicians play my work as opposed to doing samples on the computer. It's just different, more mechanical and stuff like that the human touch that's hard to replicate.
Yeah. You recently went to traveled to Europe
Yeah.
recently. Was it actually for that? Or was that like a personal trip?
That was a whole like personal thing of I want to travel around because like I said, like about a year and a half ago, I did go to Scotland with Cine Samples. That was for a work trip. That was for recording instruments. We were there for a couple weeks in Scotland and Ireland and England. And I fell in love with those countries, and I said to myself, okay, I want to go back like for just traveling and experiencing this stuff. And I went back alone by myself, just literally just traveling around the UK and Europe, going to these places that I wanted to go to. just because I wanted to see him. I think we should all try to get to wherever we can with whatever we have. We should try to travel and like expand our perspectives more, because it's like it helps, it gives you a new mindset and stuff like that. So yeah, that was just for fun.
Yeah, I totally agree with you though. This year is actually a year I'm actually really prioritizing travel.
Good.
Last year I went on my first solo trip for the first time in New York, and I want to do another like domestic travel before I travel internationally.
Yeah.
But I can agree with you, like traveling, especially like by yourself and just getting to see the world. Like you don't realize like how big this world is until you actually go to like a new place and discover it.
Yeah, seeing how other people live, you're like, oh wait, these people exist. It just opens your mind more. It's so refreshing to do that. So good for you. Yeah.
Well, we're just about to wrap up here, and so I have a couple of lasting questions for you. The first one being is, what advice would you give someone who possibly wants to be a composer? Like, what is their foot in the door? How do they get started?
I say, obviously go for it, because if you're thinking about it, if it's on your mind when you're like brushing your teeth and just on your off time, you're gonna choose it eventually. I would say choose it, don't waste any time, and utilize the resources you have to make the career work. Networking is such a valuable thing in this industry. Reaching out to, I know it can be awkward, but reaching out to people who don't know you, sending the email and just introducing yourself. Just be patient, because these things take so much time. It's small growth, but once you establish the trust and the relationships, that person will, they'll remember you. So be patient and go for it. Yeah.
Awesome. And my next question being, what does success mean to you?
I think success means being able to do the thing you love and be proud of it, and the people around you be proud of it. Putting out something that, you enjoy doing, and being able to, support yourself doing that. It's all not always about money, but if you can make a way to support yourself by doing what you love and be proud of it, I think that's the ultimate success. Yeah.
And then last but not least question, knowing the knowledge you have now, what would you have told your younger self? Whether that was picking up the drums for the first time, whether that was making the choice to move to LA, whether that was choosing to want to pursue music composition.
Yeah, I would say don't judge yourself for wanting the thing that you want, because, I kind of hesitated, and before I jumped in and moved here to LA, I was like, yeah, it would be cool to do that thing, but that's such a pipe dream. That would never happen. I would just say you can't hesitate, and you can't think that way. So I would say, believe in yourself, and also try and live in the moment as best as you can. Like, be where your feet are and enjoy every moment, because things change so quickly. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been fun.
Thanks for listening to Femme Forte. Femme Forte is produced and hosted by me, Amanda DeFries. Music is by Humans Win. To learn more about our guests, sponsors, and to get more resources, go to femfortepodcast.com and follow us on social media at Femme Forte Podcast.